I am Joseph from IT2102, and today's video I will do the activities here in chapter 9 entitled Transport Layer. Mainly transport layer is all about transport layer protocols and TCP and UDP. So I think it's easy to understand because it's only have mostly three sections and the last section is about the summary. So let's start. So now let's start answering the activities. So first activity is on 9.1, so point 2 and the last and this one. So activity TCP and UDP characteristics. So instructions: drag each characteristic to its TCP or UDP delivery method. So these are the characteristics. So and the delivery method, we will choose between TCP and UDP. So TCP. So less overhead. So it's UDP. So fast transmission requirements. So it's UDP. No acknowledgement of receipt. So UDP. So guaranteed delivery. So it's TCP. So, and ordered delivery. So TCP again. Connectionless is UDP, and sequence message segments is TCP. No order delivery is UDP. Flow control TCP. And session establishment is TCP. So for me, TCP is better delivery method than UDP. Because TCP guaranteed delivery, order delivery, sequence message segments, flow control, and session establishment. These are the characteristics of TCP. While UDP is less overhead, fast transmission requirements, no acknowledgement of receipt, connectionless, and no order delivery. So for me, TCP is better than UDP. So yeah, that's all about the activity TCP and UDP characteristics. So these are the TCP characteristics and the UDP characteristics. So that's all. Let's proceed to the next activity. So next activity is on section 9.2.1 and point 7. So in here, activity part 1, TCP connection and termination process. So instructions: drag each descriptor to its appropriate place in the image to illustrate the three-way handshake of a TCP establishment session. So three-way handshake of TCP establishment session. It's the PCA and the PCB. So this is the descriptor. ACK, CYN, ACK, and CYN. So let's proceed. So send CYN and will receive CYN. So we'll send CYN and so then receive again CYN and then send ACK and then receive ACK. Now let's check it. And yeah, it's all correct. So it says that you have successfully illustrated the three-way handshake requirements of a TCP establishment session. Send CYN, then CYN ACK, receive CYN ACK, then send ACK, and lastly receive ACK. So now we can now proceed to the next figure. So figure 2. So TBT part 2, TCP connection and termination process. So, instructions: drag each descriptor to its appropriate place in the image to illustrate the first step process of TCP termination session. So these are the two descriptor. Four-step process of TCP termination session. PCA PCB send fin. It will receive fin. Then send ACK. Then it will receive ACK. And then send fin. And then it will receive and then ACK, send ACK, and ACK will be received. So let's check it. Yeah, it's all correct. It said you have successfully illustrated the 4-step process of TCP termination session. So yeah, that's all about the second activity. Part 2, TCP connection and termination process, and the TCP connection and termination process. So it's part 1 and part 2. So let's proceed to the next and last activity here in chapter 9. So you can, it's located here in topic 9.2.4. So activity, TCP, UDP, or both. So instructions, drag the application layer protocol to its transport layer. Delivery method, TCP, UDP, or both. So now let's answer it. So these are the choices of TCP, UDP, or both. So these are the application layer protocol. So its transport layer delivery method. These are the delivery methods. So let's start. HTTP. So HTTP is on TCP. FTP is on TCP. This one TCP. DNS on both. TFTP is under UDP. Telnet is on TCP. DHCP is on UDP. SNMP is on both. And then VO UDP, and then UDP. Okay. So let's check that. Yeah, it's all correct. It said you have successfully matched the application layer protocols to their transport layer delivery methods. So these are the applications. So these are the application layer protocol and its corresponding transport layer delivery method. So TCP, HTTP, FTP, SMTP, Telnet. So UDP, TFTP, DHCP, VoIP, IPTV, and both are using TCP, UDP, DNS, and SNMTP. So yeah, that's all about the TCP, UDP, or both activities. So it's very simple and very easy. If you just familiarize to the chapter 9, you will answer this easily. And so now that's the last activity here in chapter 9. So as an overview review to chapter 9, transport layer. So the transport layer provides transport related services by dividing data received from application into segments, adding a header to identify and manage each segment, using the header information to reassemble the segments back into application data, passing the assembled data to the Connect application. UDP and TCP are common transport layer protocols. To define, TCP means Transmission Control Protocol. It is a common connection-oriented protocol that computers use to communicate over the internet. It is one of the main protocols in TCP IP networks. TCP provides error checking and guarantees delivery of data and that packets will be delivered in the order they were sent. While UDP means User Datagram Protocol. It's a connectionless protocol that works just like TCP but assumes that error checking and recovery services are not required. Instead, UDP continuously sends datagram to the recipient whether they receive them or not. So for me, TCP is much better than the UDP. So TCP and UDP have many similarities and differences. They are the most commonly used protocols for sending packets over the internet. So they are very important. So they both work on the transport layer of TCP IP protocol stack and both use the IP protocol. So yeah, that's all about the chapter 9 transport layer protocol. I hope you learned from me. So thanks for watching. Until next time.